Welcome, everyone, to Bookaccino Live. Okay, first of all, we're going to go with your top picks from August's presentation. And this was really fun to see, as always, because they usually start out these picks and they kind of shift around a little, but it stays mostly like this. So Celeste Ning's Our Missing Hearts is one of your top picks. The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. Bully Market, My Story of Money and Misogyny of Goldman Sachs. This book is a bets on selection. I am going to be interviewing Jamie Higgins at the Morristown Festival of Books on Saturday, October 8th. And I think we're doing this sometime like 1 o'clock, 1:40 in the afternoon. And I also eventually will interview her for Bookaccino Live as well. This book has been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of conversation about it. Next, we've got Alice Feeney with Daisy Darker. I'm going to be interviewing her as well. She was here in the States. She's gone back to the UK after a vacation here. So I'll be catching up to her in a couple of weeks. And from Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan, we've got Mad Honey. So those are your picks. Alice Feeney's book is also a bets on for me. I confess that I have not read the other three yet, so I can't say, will they be bets ons or not? I just need to pick up my reading speed. Next, we asked the survey last time, do you have a favorite book so far of 2022? And 62% of you said yes, 11 said no, 27% are not sure. And I think I'd be in the not sure of my favorite. I probably have to do 5 or 22. So your top picks for the favorites so far: Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post by Alison Pataki, Horse by Geraldine Brooks, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, and The Island Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. So let's see, 3 of these are my picks. I haven't read Horse and I haven't read Remarkably Bright Creatures, but I've heard great things about them. So we're going to kick off with fiction today. Our first title is Lessons, and it's by Ian McEwan. Let's move this down. Okay. And it's on sale this week. So here's what we've got for the story. When the world is still counting the cost of the Second World War and the Iron Curtain has closed, 11-year-old Roland Bain's life is turned upside down. 2,000 miles from his mother's protective love, stranded in an unusual boarding school, his vulnerability attracts piano teacher Miss Mormon Cornell, leaving scars as well as a memory of love that will never fade. Now, when his wife vanishes, leaving him alone with his tiny son, Roland is forced to confront the reality of his restless existence. As the radiation from Chernobyl spreads across Europe, he begins a search for answers that look too deep into his family history and will last for the rest of his life. Next, we've got People Person. And I was lucky enough to hear Candace Carty-Williams talk about this book. It's on sale this week. Dimple Pennington knows of her half-siblings, but she doesn't really know them. 5 people who don't have anything in common except for faint memories of being driven through Brixton in their father's gold Jeep, and some pretty complex abandonment issues. Dimple has bigger things to think about. She's 30, and her life isn't going anywhere. An aspiring lifestyle influencer with a terrible and wayward boyfriend, Dimple's life has shrunk to the size of a phone screen. And despite a small but loyal following, she's never felt more alone in her life. There's a lot of commentary there, people, on living online. This is until a dramatic event brings her half-siblings, Keisha, Danny, Lizzie, and Prince, crashing back into her life. And when they're all forced to reconnect with Silas Pennington, the absent father they never really knew, things get even more complicated. There we've got People Person. You probably remember as the author of best-selling book Queenie, which was out, I believe, last year or the year before. Next, we've got The Real Mrs. Tobias. This is a bets on selection. I'm going to be interviewing Sally Coslow. Sally and I have known each other since we worked together back at Mademoiselle magazine. It was always fun to find an author who has left the career it was you did that you knew before, but you're doing the same kinds of things now. She's the author, and I'm talking about the book. This is a Harper paperback, and it's on sale this week. It's 2015 in New York City, and 3 women are all known as Mrs. Tobias. Veronica, the matriarch, her daughter-in-law, Mel, and Mel's daughter-in-law, Bertie. They're all trying to navigate personal difficulties, some of which are with one another. Veronica and Mel, despite having little in common, are both psychotherapists who are more skilled at helping other people than themselves and solving their own problems. Bertie is still dealing with the culture shock of moving to New York City and marrying into the Tobias clan, and she's pushed to her limit when her husband gets in trouble. Overwhelmed, Bertie bolts, along with the couple's young daughter, to her Midwestern hometown, hoping to find that space, warmth, and wisdom from her own feisty grandmother will help her find a path forward. And though Bertie begins to find comfort in unexpected places, her absence stirs up long simmering troubles back home, forcing the Tobiases to reconsider the relationships to each other and ultimately what it means to be a family. And it's one of those books where you're just seeing all these people. And it's funny because, yes, I was Mrs. Fitzgerald, and so was my mother-in-law. And I just never kind of thought about this. No daughters-in-law yet here. Next, we've got The Ski Jumpers by Peter Guy. It's coming from the University of Minnesota Press. It's a small press, but I've seen so many booksellers talking about this book. I want to make sure we included it. A brilliant ski jumper has to be fearless. Yes, and I've seen those jumps. Definitely fearless. John Bargard remembers this well. His memories of daring leaps and risks might be the key to the book he's always wanted to write. A novel about his family, beginning with Pops, once a champion ski jumper himself, who also took John and his younger brother Anton to the heights. But John has never been able to get past the next ruinous episode of their history. And now he has received a terrible diagnosis. He's afraid he never will. Traveling back and forth in time, John tells his family's story, perhaps his last chance to share it, to his beloved wife Ingrid, circling ever closer to the truth about those events and his own part in them, and revealing that perhaps unforgivable violence done to the brothers' bond. Dream of ski jumping haunts John as his tale unfolds, daring time to stop just long enough to stick the landing. So there you go, The Ski Jumpers. Next, we've got Dreamland from Nicholas Sparks. News from Nicholas Sparks is he's now with Random House. He used to be with Grand Central. So this is a big move in his career. The book is coming out on September 20th. Colby Mills once felt destined for a musical career until tragedy grounded his aspirations. Now the head of a small family farm in North Carolina, he spontaneously takes a gig playing at a bar in St. Pete Beach, Florida, seeking a rare opportunity from his duties at home. But when he meets Morgan Lee, his world is turned upside down, making him wonder if the responsibilities he has shouldered need to dictate his life forever. Fleeing an abusive husband with her 6-year-old son, Beverly is trying to piece together a life for them in a small town far off the beaten track. With money running out and dangers seemingly everywhere around the corner, she makes a desperate decision that will rewrite everything she knows to be true. Fate will draw Colby, Morgan, and Beverly together in a web of life-altering connections, forcing each to wonder if the dream of a better life can survive the weight of the past. Next, we've got Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout. It's on sale on September 20th. And here we go, guys, a lockdown book. As a panic world goes into lockdown, Lucy Barton is uprooted from her life in Manhattan and bundled away to a small town in Maine by her ex-husband and on-again, off-again friend, William. For the next several months, it's just Lucy, William, and their complex past, together in a little house nestled against the moody, swirling sea. Lucy by the Sea vividly captures the fear and struggles that come with isolation, as well as the hope, peace, and possibilities of those long, quiet days can aspire. So at the heart of the story are the deep human connections that unite us even when we're apart, the pain of a beloved daughter's suffering, the emptiness that comes from the death of a loved one, the promise of a new friendship, and the comfort of an old, enduring love. So there's Lucy by the Sea. I love that cover. This is The Winners by Frederick Bachman, and this is the long-awaited conclusion to his Beartown series. Follows the small hockey town's residents as they grapple with change, pain, hope, and redemption. Maya Anderson and Benji Ovich, two young people who left in search of a life far from the forest town, come home and joyfully reunite with their closest childhood friends. They can't see how much Beartown has changed. There's a sense of optimism and purpose to the town, embodied in the impressive new ice rink that is built down by the lake. 2 years have passed since the events that no one wants to think about. Everyone has tried to move on, but there's something about this place that prevents it. The destruction caused by a ferocious late summer storm reignites the old rivalry between Beartown and the neighboring town of Head, a rivalry that has always been fought through their ice hockey teams. So there you've got the conclusion of this book, the series, and I think you can read it as a standalone, but I think it'll be much more delightful if you've read the other books before this. Next from Ellen Hildebrand, we've got Endless Summer, stories from the days that last forever. Now, it's really interesting. This book's coming out on October 4th, and we're just extending summer, one of my favorite seasons, by having a book like this come out in October. She's doing 9 stories here, prequels, sequels, and missing chapters from her books, some of which have never been published until now. Here are just 3 stories that you'll find in this collection. 3 years after Mallory Blessing's death in 28 Summers, her friends gather for another eventful Labor Day celebration on Nantucket in The Sixth Wedding. Marriage is at the heart of Beautiful Day. It enters an uncertain territory when Margot Carmichael encourages her husband to reunite with his ex-girlfriend in a surfing lesson. And in The Tailgate, the weekend of a Harvard-Yale football game recharts the course of matchmaker Dabney Kimball's first and abiding true love. So there, you're going to have 9 different stories and lots to think about, especially if you've read her other books. Next, we've got The Hero of This Book by Elizabeth McCracken, coming on October 4th. 10 months after her mother's death, the narrator of the hero of this book takes a trip to London. The city was a favorite of her mother's, and as the narrator wanders the streets, she finds herself reflecting on her mother's life and their relationship. Thoughts of the past meld with questions of the future. Back in New England, the family home is now up for sale. Its considerable contents already winnowed. The woman, a writer, recalls all that made her complicated mother extraordinary: her brilliant wit, her generosity, her unbelievable obstinacy, and her sheer will in seizing life despite physical difficulties, and finds herself wondering how her mother had endured. Even though she wants to respect her mother's near pathological sense of privacy, the woman must come to terms with whether making a chronicle of this remarkable life constitutes an act of love or betrayal. So there you've got the hero of this book. Next, we've got Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. It's on sale also on October 4th. Olivia McPhee's picture-perfect life was upended when her husband revealed a darker side. She never imagined that she would would end up back in her sleepy New Hampshire hometown with her son Asher. Meanwhile, Libby Campanello and her mother relocate to Adams, New Hampshire for her final year of high school for what they hope will be a fresh start. For a short while, the new beginnings are exactly what Olivia and Lily need. Their paths cross when Asher falls for the new girl in school, and Lily can't help but fall for him too. And then one day, Olivia receives a phone call. Lily is dead, and Asher is being questioned by the police. Olivia is adamant that her son is innocent, but as the case against him unfolds, she realizes he's hidden more than he's shared with her. Jodi's known for taking an issue kind of a story and just pulling it in so many different directions. It's going to be interesting to see what she does writing with Jennifer, co-writer. The only other co-writer she's written with is her daughter. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this book. Next, we've got Celeste Ning. This is an eagerly anticipated book coming on October 4th. 12-year-old Bird Gardner lives a quiet existence with his loving but broken father, former linguist who now shelves books in a university library. For a decade, their lives have been governed by laws written to preserve American culture in the wake of years of economic instability and violence. To keep the peace and restore prosperity, the authorities are now allowed to relocate children of dissidents, especially those of Asian origin, and libraries have been forced to remove books that are seen as unpatriotic, including the works of Bird's mother, Margaret, a Chinese-American poet who has left the family when he was 9 years old. Bird has grown up disavowing his mother and her poems, but when he receives a mysterious letter containing only a cryptic drawing, he's pulled in a quest to find her. So once again, we're tackling an issue here. It's a beautiful cover where we've got the feather and the birds flying away. I think it's like beautifully rendered. I want to see what it means to the story. Now we're going to do some historical fiction. We've got The Matchmaker's Gift by Linda Cohen Leugman, and I'm going to be interviewing her, I want to say, the last week in September about this book. It's coming out next Tuesday. Even as a child in 1910, Sarah Glickman knows her gift. She's a maker of matches and a seeker of soulmates. But among the pushcart crowded streets of New York's Lower East Side, Sarah's vocation is dominated by devout older men who see a talented female matchmaker as a dangerous threat to their traditions and livelihood. After making matches in secret for more than a decade, Sarah must fight to take her rightful place among her peers and to demand the recognition she deserves. 2 generations later, Sarah's granddaughter Abby is a successful Manhattan divorce attorney, representing the city's wealthiest clients. When her beloved grandma Sarah dies, Abby inherits her collection of handwritten journals recording the details of Sarah's matches. But among the faded columns, she finds more questions than answers. Another beautiful cover. Next, we've got Jacqueline in Paris by Anne Ma. It's coming on September 27th. In September 1949, Jacqueline Bouvier arrives in post-war Paris to begin her junior year abroad. She's 20 years old, socially poised, but financially precarious, and all too aware of her mother's expectations that she will make a brilliant match. Jacqueline is immediately catapulted in an intoxicating new world of champagne and chateaus, art and avant-garde theater, cafes and jazz clubs. She strikes up a romance with a talented young writer who shares her love of literature and passion for culture, even though her mother would think him unsuitable. But beneath the glitter and the rush, France is in a fragile place, still haunted by the occupation. In the aftermath of World War II, Paris has become a nest of spies, and suspicion and deception and betrayal lurk around every corner. Jacqueline is stunned to watch the rise of communism, never guessing that she is witnessing the beginning of the political environment that will shape the rest of her life and that of her future husband. Shrines of Gaiety by Kate Atkinson, also coming on September 27th. It's 1926, and in a country still recovering from the Great War, London has become the focus for delirious new nightlife. The clubs of Soho, peers of the realm, rub shoulders with starlets, foreign dignitaries and gangsters, and girls who sell dances for a shilling a time. The notorious queen of this glittering world is Nellie Coker, ruthless but also ambitious to advance her 6 children, including the enigmatic eldest, Niven, whose character has been forged into the crucible of the Somme. But success breeds enemies, and Nellie's empire faces threats from without and within. For beneath the dazzle of Soho's gaiety, there's a dark underbelly, a world into one is too easily lost. There's that Shrines of Gaiety. We don't get some thrillers and mysteries. We're going to start with Ronald H. Balson's An Affair of Spies, which is out this week. Nathan Silverman's idyllic childhood in Berlin is soon marred by an increasing levels of bigotry against his family and the rest of the Jewish community. After his uncle is arrested on Kristallnacht, he leaves Germany for New York City with only his mother's wedding ring to sell for survival. While attending an evening course at Columbia in 1942, Nathan notices a recruitment poster on a university wall and decides to enlist in the military and help Nazis fight the Nazi regime. The Allies are racing to develop a nuclear weapon before the Nazis, and a German theoretical physicist is hoping to defect. The physicist, who was a friend of his father's, and Nathan's mission is to return to Berlin via France and smuggle him out of Europe. There's An Affair of Spies. He was the author of Once We Were Brothers, if any of you remember that book. Marple, 12 New Mysteries, is written by a group of various authors, which include Val McDermott, Jean Kwok, Lucy Foley, Allison Cole, Lee Bardugo. I can go on and on here. Ruth Ware, Kate Moss, many authors. And what they're doing is Jane Marple is an elderly lady from St. Mary Mead, who possesses an uncanny knack for solving even the most perplexing puzzles. Now, for the first time in 45 years, Agatha Christie's beloved character returns to the page for a globe-trotting tour of crime and detection. Join Marple as she travels the world through her sleepy English village and around the world. In St. Mary Mead, a Christmas dinner is interrupted by unexpected guests. The Broadway stage in New York City is set for a dangerous improvisation. Bad omens surround an untimely death aboard a cruise ship to Hong Kong. And a best-selling writer on holiday in Italy is caught in a nefarious plot. These and other crimes committed in the name of love, jealousy, blackmail, and revenge are the ones that only the indomitable Jane Marple can solve. It's a really, really fun way of looking at her work and sort of exposing what her storylines would be through these authors. So some fun to enjoy. Next, we've got Out of Loyalty, a Mitch Rapp novel by Vince Flynn, who's passed away. His name is used here and is written by Kyle Mills. So it's out this week. With President Anthony Cook convinced that Mitch Rapp poses a mortal threat to him, CIA Director Irene Kennedy is forced to construct a truce between the two men. The terms are simple. Rapp agrees to leave the country and stay in plain sight for as long as Cook controls the White House. In exchange, the administration agrees not to make any moves against him. Fragile detente holds up until Cook's power-hungry security advisor convinces him that Rapp has no interest in honoring their agreement. In an effort to put him on the defensive, they leak the true identity of his partner, Claudia Gould. As Rapp races to neutralize the enemies organizing against her, he discovers that a new generation of assassins is on her trail. So we've got Oath of Loyalty. Next, we've got The Bullet That Missed, a Thursday Murder Club mystery by Richard Osman, on sale next week. Trouble is never far away where the Thursday Mystery Club is concerned. A decade-old cold case, their favorite kind, leads them to the local news legend and a murder with no body and no answers. Then a new foe pays Elizabeth a visit. Her mission, kill or be killed. And suddenly the cold case becomes red hot. When Elizabeth wrestles with her conscience and a gun, Joyce, Ron, and Ibrahim chase down the clues with the help of from old friends and new. Can the gang solve the mystery and save Elizabeth before the murderer strikes again? And we've got The Bullet That Missed. Next, we got Wealth Managing, coming from Edward Zuckerman. In the lush world banking capital of Geneva, Switzerland, three friends from Harvard Business School find their lives and their work unexpectedly intertwined. Catherine and Majid are handling investments for their clients with dubious pedigrees. When their friend Rafe shows up in Geneva, he claims to be just another startup hedge fund manager. But Rafe, after a moral awakening, is now an undercover agent with the U.S. Treasury's Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. He's in Geneva secretly investigating his old friends, one of whom is his former lover. As the CIA closes in on the terrorists themselves, Rafe, with the help of Detective Emmanuel Okoro of the Nigerian police, works to find a way to save his friends and the world at the same time. So there we've got Wealth Management. And I like the little piggy bank that looks like it's going to explode. So world blows up. Next, we've got from Scott Turow, we've got Suspect. It's coming on September 27th. I think that an earlier presentation, we had this coming on the 20th. It moved due to the all fun things that are happening in publishing today, which is printer issues of getting books printed, getting books put together, getting books to the places where they're sold. It's still a big issue. And I know people are still scrambling for time. So this is one book that got delayed. For as long as Wachia Gomez had been the police chief in the city of High Island near Kendall County, she's known that any woman in law enforcement must walk a precarious line between authority and camaraderie to gain respect. She's maintained a spotless reputation until now. 3 male police officers have accused her of soliciting sex in exchange for promotions to higher ranks. With few people left that she can trust, Chief Gomez turns to an old friend, Rick Dudek, to act as her attorney in the federal grand jury investigation, insisting to Rick and the accusations against her are part of an ugly smear campaign designed to destroy her career and empower her enemies, both outside the police force and within. So from Scott, it's always going to be one of these quick-paced kinds of books, tightly written. So here we've got Suspect. We're going to do some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. Start out with Jan Wenner. This book is like a Rolling Stone, a memoir. I joke that I received Rolling Stone. I think I've subscribed to it for 20 years. I think they're still up in my attic. And it was like the thing to read. It was the thing to read when I was growing up, to be cool and understand what was going on. Not that I was cool, but I did know what was going on. But this is his memoir of what life was like. He's the founder, co-editor, and publisher. He's been called by his peers the greatest editor of his generation. His deeply personal memoir vividly describes and brings you inside the music, the politics, and the lifestyle of a generation, an epoch of cultural change that swept America and beyond. He takes us into the life and work of Bob Dylan, John Lennon, Mick Jagger, Bono, and Bruce Springsteen, to name a few. He was instrumental in the careers of Hunter S. Thompson, Tom Wolfe, and Annie Leibovitz. His journey took him to the Oval Office with his legendary interviews with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, leaders to whom Rolling Stone gave historic, full-throated backing. From Jerry Garcia to the Dalai Lama, Aretha Franklin to Greta Thunberg, the people winner chose to be seen and heard in the pages of Rolling Stone, tried to change the American culture, values, and morality. And I remember when those magazines came out, you never knew who was going to be on the cover. You never knew what the stories were going to be inside. But to get what the song said on the cover of Rolling Stone was a really big deal. And I do remember that. I do have to say that if he's not going to take us into the world of Paul Simon and Garfunkel, the book is not complete. So let's just see. Maybe they're just not mentioned here. Everybody, who's a longtime reader, knows what I mean. Next, we've got Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder by William Shatner with Joshua Brandon. It's on sale on October 4th. Long before Gene Roddenberry put him on a starship to explore the galaxy, long before he actually did venture to space, William Shatner was gripped by his own quest for knowledge and meaning. Through his eventful life has been nothing short of extraordinary. Shatner is still never so thrilled as when he experiences something that inspires him to simply say, wow. With these affecting, entertaining, and informative essays, he demonstrates the astonishing possibilities and true wonder that are all around us. By revealing stories of his life, some delightful and some tragic, Shatner reflects on what he has learned along the way in his ninth decade and how important it is to imply the joy of exploration to our own lives. So I love that cover. I love the title, Boldly Go. Next, we've got some November titles to look forward to, and there are a lot. November is going to be a big month. Remember, of the books that you've been seeing, usually September, October, we start stocking the shelves of booksellers. Publishers want to get the books out, so they're in stock for buying for holiday season. So just keep in mind that a lot of the books you see this time of year are the big books. You're not going to see a lot of debut authors coming in right now. This is what I call the big guns that they're hoping to sell through and make the year with. So we start with Sophie Hannah, A Couple at the Table, on sale on November 1st. Jane and William are enjoying their honeymoon in an exclusive couples-only resort until Jane receives a chilling note warning her to beware of the couple at the table nearest yours. At dinner that night, 5 other couples are present, and none of their tables deem to be any nearer or further away from the others. It's almost as if someone has set a scene in order to make the warning note meaningless. But why would anyone do that? Jane has no idea, but someone in the dining room will be dead before breakfast, and all the evidence will suggest that no one there could possibly have committed the crime. There's the couple at the table. Next, we've got Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, a memoir from Matthew Perry. Starts, hi, my name is Matthew. Although you may not know me by that name, my friends call me Maddie, and I should be dead. So begins the riveting story of acclaimed actor Matthew Perry, taking us on a journey from childhood ambition to fame to addiction and recovery in the aftermath of a life-threatening health scare. Before the frequent hospital visits and stints in rehab, there was 5-year-old Matthew, who traveled from Montreal to Los Angeles, shuffling between his separated parents. 14-year-old Matthew, who was a nationally ranked tennis star in Canada. 24-year-old Matthew, who nabbed a coveted role as a lead cast member on the talked about pilot, then called Friends Like Us, and so much more. That show went on to be Friends. So there's his story of what happened behind the scenes that none of us knew. Next, we've got The Prisoner by B.A. Paris, coming on November 1st. Amelia has always been a survivor, from losing her parents as a child in Paris to making it on her own in London. As she builds a life for herself, she's swept up into a glamorous lifestyle where she married the handsome billionaire Ned Hawthorne. But then she wakes up in a pitch black room, not knowing where she is. Why has she been taken? Who are mysterious captors? And why does she soon feel safer here in prison than she'd begun to feel with her husband, Ned? There's The Prisoner. You may remember her as the author of The Therapist from a couple of years ago. Now we've got Philippa Gregory with Dawnlands. You know her as the author of Tidelands and Dark Tides. So it's 1685. England is on the brink of a renewed civil war against the Stuart kings, and many families are bitterly divided. Ned Ferryman cannot persuade his sister Eleanor that he is right to return from America with his Pocanut servant Rowan to join the rebel army. Instead, Eleanor has been coaxed by manipulative Livia to save the queen from the coming siege. The rewards are life-changing. The family could return to their beloved Tidelands, and Eleanor could rule where she was once lower than a servant. Eleanor's son Rob is determined to stay clear of the war, but when he and his nephews set out to free Ned from execution for treason and Rowan from a convict deportation to Barbados, they find themselves enmeshed in the creation of an imposter Prince of Wales, a surrogate baby to the Queen. Then we've got Dawnlands. So much being talked about. England, the throne, Prince, woof, got it all there. Okay, then we've got Desert Star, a Renee Ballard and Harry Bosch novel coming from Michael Connolly. A year has passed since the LAP detective Renee Ballard quit the force in the face of misogyny, demoralization, and endless red tape. But after the chief of police himself tells her she can write her own ticket within the department, she takes back her badge, leaving the Wait Show to rebuild and lead the cold case unit at the elite robbery homicide division. For years, Harry Bosch has been working on a case that haunts him: the murder of an entire family by a psychopath who still walks free. Ballard made Bosch an offer. Come volunteer as an investigator in her new open unsolved unit, and he could pursue his white whale with the resources of the LAPD behind him. First priority for Ballard is to clear the unsolved rape and murder of a 16-year-old girl. The decades-old case is essential to the councilman who supported reforming the unit and who could shutter it again. The victim was his sister. So really interesting backstory there. You know, the other day I watched on the evening news, how looking at back cases with new eyes and what could end up happening, and how this one family ended up finding out what really happened when one of their family members came to the city. It ends up that he had some kind of an attack. I don't remember, it was an asthma attack or something like that. Went to the hospital, had no idea, died, and they found out where she was buried. And all these years, the family had wondered what had happened to her. So I think those, crimes have never been solved. There's such an interest in them. Then we've got The Last Party by Claire McIntosh. This is coming on November 8th. On New Year's Eve, Reese Lloyd has a house full of guests. His vacation homes on Mirror Lake are a success, and he's generally invited the village to drink champagne with their wealthy new neighbors. But by midnight, Reese will be floating dead in the freezing waters of the lake. On New Year's Day, Vivian Morgan has a village full of suspects. The tiny community is her home, so the suspects are her neighbors, friends, and family. Vivian has her own secrets to protect. With a lie uncovered at every turn, soon the question isn't who wanted Reese dead, but who finally killed him. So it's at midnight, one of them is dead. By morning, all of them are suspects. Okay, I just read this last weekend. This is going to be a Bets On selection. It's Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. And I will tell you that this book has twists in it, and I did not catch them. And that's like a really good sign. What could be more restful than a weekend getaway with family and friends? An isolated luxury cabin in the woods, complete with spectacular views, a hot tub, and a personal chef. Hannah's loving and generous tech mogul brother found the listing online. The reviews are stellar. It's his birthday gift to Hannah and include their spouses and another couple. The 6 friends needed this trip with good food, good company, and lots of R&R, far from the chatter and pressures of modern life. But the dreamy weekend is just about to turn into a nightmare. A deadly storm is brewing. The rental host seems a little too present. The personal chef reveals that their beautiful house has a spine-tingling history, and the friends all have their complicated past with secrets that run blood deep. So here you've got Secluded Cabin Sleep 6. It is very, very, very well done. I wanted to stay in a house like that, but I had no Wi-Fi. I mean, seriously. It was said to have it, but if you didn't have it, what would I do? Next, we've got A Book a Days, which is coming from Patti Smith on November 15th. 2018, without any plan or agenda for what might happen next, Patti Smith posted her first Instagram photo, a hand with a simple message: "Hello, everyone." Known for shooting with her beloved Land Camera 250, she started posting images from her phone, including portraits of her kids, her radiator, her boots, and her Byzantine cat, Cairo. Followers felt an immediate affinity with these miniature windows into Smith's life. Over time, a coherent story of a life devoted to art took shape, and more than 1 million followers responded to her unique aesthetic in images that chart her passions, devotions, obsessions, and whims. Original to this book are vintage photographs, anniversary pearls, mother's keychain, her husband's most right guitar. Here, too, are photos from Smith's archives of life on and off the road, train stations, obscure cafes, a notebook where nearby is always and a wide-ranging yet intimate daily notations. She shares dispatches from her favorite travels around the world. I've got that from Patti Smith. I love the cover of this. Number one is Walking, My Life in the Movies and Other Diversions by Steve Martin with drawings by Harry Bliss. They've been together before. They did a book together that came out last year or the year before. And that one was just the entree point to these two working together. He's never written about his career in the movies before. And number one is Walking. He shares anecdotes from the sets of his beloved films, Father of the Bride, Roxanne, The Jerk, Three Amigos, and many more, bringing readers directly into his world. He shares charming tales of antics, moments of inspiration, and exploits with the life of Paul McCartney, Diane Keaton, Robin Williams, and Chevy Chase. He details his 40 years in the movie biz, as well as stand-up comedy, banjo playing, writing, and cartooning, all with his unparalleled wit. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, folks. Then we've got The Twist of a Knife coming from Anthony Horowitz. You may know him from The Magpie Murders and The Word is Murder. Reluctant author Anthony Horowitz tells ex-detective Daniel Hawthorne that after 3 books, he's splitting and their deal is over. Anthony's news play, a thriller named Mind Game, is about to open at the Vaudeville Theatre in London's West End. Not surprisingly, Hawthorne declines a ticket to the opening night. The play is panned by the critics. In particular, the Sunday Times critic Margaret Thosby gives it a savage review, focusing particularly on the writing. The next day, Thosby is stabbed in the heart with an ornamental dagger, which turned out to belong to Anthony and has his fingerprints all over it. Anthony is arrested by an old enemy, Detective Inspector Kara Gunshaw. She still carries a grudge from her failure to solve the case described in the second Hawthorne adventure, The Sentence's Death, and blames Anthony, and now she's out for revenge. For Minotaur Books, we've got from Louise Penny, who usually publishes in August, got a November title this year, coming November 29th, called A World of Curiosities. As the villagers of Three Pines prepare for a special celebration, Chief Inspector Armand Gamache and Jean-Claude Beauvoir find themselves increasingly worried. A young man and woman have reappeared in the Sûreté de Quebec investigators' lives after many years. The two were young children when their troubled mother was murdered, leaving them damaged and shattered. And now they've arrived in Three Pines, but to what end? Gamache and Beauvoir's memories of that tragic case, the first one that brought them together, comes rushing back. Did their mother's murder hurt them beyond repair? Have those terrible wounds buried for decades festered and now are about to erupt? So there's A World of Curiosities. These are some notable September paperback releases. There's Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger, Warren Groff's Matrix, Cloud Cuckoo Land from Anthony Doerr, Honor by Thridi Umberger, that I'm reading right now, and I am definitely trying to get an interview scheduled with her. This is going to be a bets on, even though it's out in paperback. I sadly didn't get to it in hardcover when it came out at the beginning of the year. It's really a terrific read. I'm still trying to get the significance of the cover. So I either will unfold as I keep reading, either that or I'll ask her. And then we've got Smile, a memoir from Sarah Ruhl, which talks about her face, where she had I forget what it's called. Half of her face was dropped after she had her child, and what happened to her life as a result of that. And it was a very, very interesting book when I read it last year. I was happy to have an interview with her as well. So we're up to 27 books that are my best on selections so far. I think since the last time we talked, I probably have added The Last to Vanish, Lessons in Chemistry, Things We Do in the Dark, and Fellowship Point. And there are at least 4 that I read while I was on vacation that will be joining this list. A couple of them were in today's presentation. We haven't done any recent interviews just because my life has been a little up in the air, but we'll be picking up next week, doing more interviews. They'll probably start running the week after because Jordan, our fabulous producer, is taking a vacation break. When we come back, we'll have lots of new interviews with you. Got a lot of authors booked. And it's funny, like a lot of people weren't available when I wasn't available, and it's all coming together now. So looking forward to doing much more of this. Also, when I mentioned our Morristown Festival of Books the other day, besides interviewing Jamie about Bully Market, I also am going to interview Nita Prose about The Maid. So anybody who's local, I think I'm doing that at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then think it's at 5:15. James Patterson. There's going to be a special ticketed event, and it's going to be me interviewing James Patterson. It's really interesting because I know a number of writers who have co-written with him. I want to talk to him about his life writing with Dolly Parton, and I also want to see what he's done. Like, there was the early years in his career that a lot of people don't know about that he touched on in his autobiography. So I've got that coming up as well. And we have a fabulous new Bookaccino Live event that I am super excited about. The original video I did with these two got so many views. So it's going to be Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. We're going to discuss the personal librarian. So many of you have been to these events before, so you know how they work. But if not, I'll explain. We purposely do them at 8 p.m. Somehow everything starts at 7 p.m. I'm usually eating dinner at 7 p.m. So we're doing 8 p.m. for these kinds of events. I feel it gives more people around the country an opportunity to participate. If you're commuting home or whatever, you've got some time. And if you're, we're also recording it for those of you who can't make it that evening. If you want to be on stage and in the green room, which means you're in your house, but in the same venue to be able to talk to these two authors, let us know. I need to know what question you'd like to ask them on camera, and you can meet them in the green room before. And drop me a note at Carol@bookreporter.com with the subject line personal librarian, and we'll get that figured out. This book has been getting so many raves. It's out in paperback now. You've got 2 weeks to still read it before the event. So it's something that I am very much looking forward to having a conversation with both of them. Also, Marie is going to be at the Morristown Festival of Books as well. Don't know what time she's going to be there, but I know she's doing that event. Our next Bookaccino Live afternoon event, where we're going to talk about books coming out October 11th through November 1st, and a peek ahead at December, will be happening on Wednesday, October 12th at 2:00 in the afternoon. And sign up is available on bookreporter.com probably after this event, because Tom is so together that I did the link this morning and he's on it.